Okay, we're going to do April 8th in the Chronological Study Bible. It is the New Living Translation. It's also day 98 if that is the way that you are following through. And this does conclude the book of Ruth. We go through the lineage of David. Ruth's story concludes with Naomi's bitterness being undone. Naomi experiences the Lord's provision through the marriage of Boaz and Ruth and the birth of her grandson. A genealogy connects this family line from Judah's son Perez to King David. The mention of Perez in the genealogy ties Ruth's story to that of Tamar, Judah's daughter-in-law, through whom Perez was born in Genesis chapter 38. As both stories show, David's lineage was not free of brokenness and tragedy. But as God promised, Judah would produce a king. And he promised that in Genesis 49:10. Perez was not that king, but his family line would lead to the king, David. Ruth's story, along with Hannah's story, which is introduced here, recalls the women who played a key role at the beginning of the Exodus era, the Hebrew midwives and Moses' mother and sister. Even in the highly patriarchal culture of ancient Israel, God delights to include women in his great redemption story. So we're going to look at the descendants of Boaz, and we're going to start in Ruth chapter 4, verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth into his home, and she became his wife. When he slept with her, the Lord enabled her to become pregnant, and she gave birth to a son. Then the women of the town said to Naomi, "Praise the Lord, who has now provided a redeemer for your family." Whoops. May this child be famous in Israel. May he restore your youth and care for you in your old age. For he is the son of your daughter-in-law who loves you and has been better to you than 7 sons. Naomi took the baby and cuddled him to her breast, and she cared for him as if he were her own. The neighbor women said, "Now at last Naomi has a son again." And they named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse and the grandfather of David. This is the genealogical record of their ancestor Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Ram was the father of Amminadab. Amminadab was the father of Nahshon. Nahshon was the father of Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz. Boaz was the father of Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse. And Jesse was the father of David. So from 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verses 9 through 17, we have this. The sons of Hezron were Jerahmeel, Ram, and Caleb. Ram was the father of Amminadab. Amminadab was the father of Nahshon, a leader of Judah. Nahshon was the father of Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz. Boaz was the father of Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse's first son was Eliab. His second was Amminadab. His third was Shemaiah. His fourth was Nathanael. His fifth was Radiah. His sixth was Ozim. And his seventh was David. Their sisters were named Zuriah and Abigail. Zuriah had 3 sons named Abishai, Joab, and Asahel. Abigail married a man named Jether, an Ishmaelite, and they had a son named Amasa. From 1 Chronicles 2, 18 through 24. Hezron's son Caleb had sons from his wife, Azubah, and from Jerioth. Her sons were named Jeshur, Shobab, and Ardon. After Azubah died, Caleb married Ephrathah, and they had a son named Hur. Hur was the father of Uri. Uri was the father of Bezalel. When Hezron was 60 years old, he married Gilead's sister, the daughter of Machir. They had a son named Segub. Segub was the father of Jair, who ruled 23 towns in the land of Gilead. But Geshur and Aram captured the towns of Jair and also took Kenath and its 60 surrounding villages. All these were descendants of Machir, the father of Gilead. Soon after Hezron died in the town of Caleb Ephrathah, his wife Abijah gave birth to a son named Asher, the father of Tekoa. So the descendants of Hezron's son, Jerahmeel, 1 Chronicles 2, beginning in verse 25. The sons of Jerahmeel, the oldest son of Hezron, were Ram, the firstborn, Bunah, Oren, Ozim, and Ahijah. Jerahmeel had a second wife named Adarah. She was the mother of Onam. The sons of Ram, the oldest son of Jerahmeel, were Maaz, Jamin, and Eker. The sons of Onam were Shammai and Jada. The sons of Shammai were Nadab and Abishur. The sons of Abishur and his wife Abihail were Aban and Molib. The sons of Nadab were Seled and Apaim. Seled died without children, but Apaim had a son named Ishi. The son of Ishi was Shishan. Shishan had a descendant named Ale. The sons of Jada, Shammai's brother, were Jether and Jonathan. Jether died without children, but Jonathan had two sons named Peleth and Zaza, or Jaja. I don't know. These were all descendants of Jerahmeel. Shishan had no sons, though he did have daughters. He also had an Egyptian servant named Jarha. Shishan gave one of his daughters to be the wife of Jarha, and they had a son named Attai. Attai was the father of Nathan. Nathan was the father of Zabad. Zabad was the father of Ephlol. Ephlol was the father of Obed. Obed was the father of Jehu. Jehu was the father of Azariah. Azariah was the father of Helez. Helez was the father of Eleasa. Eleasa was the father of Sismai. Sismai was the father of Shallum. Shallum was the father of Jechamiah. Jechamiah was the father of Elishama. So the descendants of Hezron's son Caleb, 1 Chronicles 2, 42 through 50. The descendants of Caleb, the brother of Jerahmeel, included Mesha, the firstborn, who became the father of Ziph. Caleb's descendants also included the sons of Marishah, the father of Hebron. The sons of Hebron were Korah, Tepuah, Rekem, and Shema. Shema was the father of Raham. Raham was the father of Jorkiam. Rekem was the father of Shammai. The son of Shammai was Maon. Maon was the father of Beth-zur. Caleb's concubine, Ephah, gave birth to Haran, Mosa, and Gazez. Haran was the father of Gazez. The sons of Jadiah were Regem, Jotham, Geshan, Pelet, Ephah, and Shaph. Another of Caleb's concubines, Maacah, gave birth to Sheber and Tirhana. She also gave birth to Sheaph, the father of Madmanah, and Sheva, the father of Machbenah and Gibeah. Caleb also had a daughter named Oxa. These were all descendants of Caleb. So the descendants of Caleb's son Hur. The sons of Hur, the oldest son of Caleb's wife Ephrathah, were Shobal, the founder of Kiriath Jearim, Salma, the founder of Bethlehem, and Hareph, the founder of Beth Gadir. The descendants of Shobal, the founder of Kiriath Jearim, were Heroe. I have no idea how to say that. I don't actually know how to say any of these names. We're just winging it. Half the Manahites and the families of Kiriath Jearim, the Ithrites, Puthites, Shumathites, and Mishraites, from whom came the people of Zorah and Eshtaol. The descendants of Salma were the people of Bethlehem and the Netophathites. Atroth Beth Joab, the other half of the Manahathites, the Zorites, and the families of scribes living at Jabez. Jabez. The Tirathites, Shimeathites, and Sukathites. All these were Kenites who descended from Hamath, the father of the family of Rechab. Now, I've never noticed Jabez's name being in there without his Jabez's prayer. That's interesting. It's a new discovery. Other descendants of Judah. Sorry, squirrel. First Chronicles chapter 4, verse 1. The descendants of Judah were Perez, Hezron, Carmi, Hur, and Shobal. Shobal's son Rei was the father of Jahath. Jahath was the father of Ahumai and Lahad. These were the families of the Zorathites. The descendants of Edom were Jezreel, Ishma, Idbash, their sister Hazel Lelponi, Penuel, the father of Gedor, and Ezer, the father of Husha. These were the descendants of Hur, the firstborn of Ephrathah, the ancestor of Bethlehem. Asher, the father of Tekoa, had two wives named Helah and Naara. Naara gave birth to Ahuzam, Hefer, Timni, and Haashatari. Helah gave birth to Zereth, Izhar, Ethnan, and Koz, who became the ancestor of Anam, Zobebah, and all the families of Aharel, son of Haram. There was a man named Jabez, who was more honorable than any of his brothers. His mother named him Jabez because his birth had been so painful. He was the one who prayed to the God of Israel, "Oh, that you would bless me and expand my territory. Please be with me in all that I do and keep me from all trouble and pain." And God granted him his request. There's a book by Bruce Wilkins called The Prayer of Jabez that came out in about 2000, maybe 2001. I highly recommend that book. It's a really good. It's it's a tiny little book, but he goes in, he breaks that prayer down and talks about all the meaning behind all of that. That's really a very deep prayer with a lot of heart cry in it, and well worth a read. The Prayer of Jabez by Bruce Wilkinson. Caleb, the brother of Shuha, was the father of Mahir. Mahir was the father of Eshton. Eshton was the father of Beth Rapha. Paseah and Tehinnah. Tehinnah was the father of Nahash. These were the descendants of Rechah. The sons of Kenaz were Othniel and Sariah. Othniel's sons were Hathath and Meonathai. Meonathai was the father of Ophrah. Sariah was the father of Joab, the founder of the Valley of Craftsmen, so called because they were craftsmen. The sons of Caleb's son of Jephunneh were Eru, Elah, and Naam. The son of Elah was Kenaz. The sons of Jehalelel were Ziph, Ziphah, Tiria, and Asarel. The sons of Ezra were Jether, Mered, Epher, and Jalon. One of Mered's wives became the mother of Miriam, Shimei, and Ishbah, the father of Eshtemoa. He married a woman from Judah who became the mother of Jared, the father of Gedor, Heber, the father of Soko, and Jekuthiel, the father of Zanoah. Mered also married Bithiah, a daughter of Pharaoh, and she bore him children. Hodiah's wife was the sister of Nahum. One of her sons was the father of Keilah the Garmite, and another was the father of Eshtemoa the Maacathite. The sons of Shimon were Amnon, Rena, Ben-Hanan, and Tilon. The descendants of Ishi were Zoheth and Ben-Zoheth. Descendants of Judah's son Shelah. Shelah was one of Judah's sons. The descendants of Shelah were the father of Lekah, Laadah, the father of Mareshah, the families of linen workers at Beth Ashbea, Jocham, the men of Kozabah, and Joash and Seraph, who ruled over Moab, and Jashubi Laim. These names all come from ancient records. They were the pottery makers who lived in Netaim and Gedera. They lived there and worked for the king. I had so hoped that we had broken all of those up because we kept coming into little snippets of Chronicles when we were reading through the first, few books. But anyway, we're through it now. Elkanah and his family. We're starting in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1. Samuel was born late in the Judges period. There was a man named Elkanah who lived in Ramah in the region of Zuph in the hill country of Ephraim. He was the son of Jeroham, son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Zuph of Ephraim. Elkanah had two wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah did not. Each year, Elkanah would travel to Shiloh to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of Heaven's armies at the tabernacle. The priests of the Lord at that time were the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas. On the days Elkanah presented his sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to Peninnah and each of her children. And though he loved Hannah, he would give her only one choice portion because the Lord had given her no children. So Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. Year after year, it was the same. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went to the tabernacle. Each time, Hannah would be reduced to tears and would not even eat. "Why are you crying, Hannah?" Elkanah would ask. "Why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted just because you have no children? You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons?" And that concludes the April 8th Daily